ultimately it comes down to being able to create a process with growth in mind, obviously, because there's always a limit to how many questions you can answer over the phone, right? The whole objective for me was like, how can I multiply myself in a way where I can hold the rep as if I was there with my hand and just hold their hand every step of the way, just like a customer, right? Man, I realized that my conversion to installation, for instance, was so much better when I was constantly communicating with my customer.
That was George Garcia talking about the onboarding process that he implements at LGCY Power. LGCY Power is a solar company up in Lehi, Utah, and George is the director of sales performance for them. So in this episode of The Reps Journey, Stephen Ryan, the CEO of ConveYour, and myself interviewed George, and we asked him why he maps out a journey in the onboarding process for their sales reps. We also asked him to talk about advice that he would give to directors of sales. We asked him to talk about things that he wished he knew when he first started. And if you're a director of sales, he's talking directly to you. So there's a lot of great meat here. But if you're a sales rep and you're looking for promotion, George also has some advice for you. He'll talk to you about ways that you can enhance your skills so that you can grow in this industry. The Reps Journey exists to help sales teams recruit, train, and retain their sales reps. So stick around.
Okay, so I'm here with George. George is the director of sales performance with LGCY Power in Lehi, Utah. And George has been with LGCY since 2015. He's a sales manager. He's supervised inside sales teams, and he's managed his own district, I think out of Fresno, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. And the first time I met George, I was just really impressed. He obviously has a deep understanding of the residential solar industry. And he knows what it takes to onboard, recruit, train, retain reps. And I was really eager to have George on the podcast because I think that every CRO, every director of sales, every person that's in charge of the rep experience should be thinking about the rep journey or how to onboard reps, how to keep reps, the way George is thinking about it. And so the first thing that jumped out for me, George, when we met was you pulled up this whiteboard. You pulled up this lucid chart of what you envision or what you are working on, what you're working on for your onboarding journey. And my question for you is, what got you to the point where you were doing that? What got you to the point where you said, you know what, I really need to, don't want to put words in your mouth, but not react to this and be more proactive. Walk me through that journey for the journey in your mind where maybe you didn't do that in the past and now you're thinking about it this way and you're being proactive and you're designing the rep journey like that.
Sure. Yeah. So when it comes to the journey, I realized that it was a lot more complex than I thought at first. So I had to just write it down, right? I had to better understand it. And coming from the field, being a rep and seeing it from that perspective, I started, realizing the importance of that experience from that perspective, right? So I kind of had to play like this interesting role in my mind where I was not only the rep, but I was also the company, and I was also the trainer, and I'm also the communicator and the sales support agent. I'm all these things at once. And so being able to put it on paper and kind of create those complexities a little bit more simple for the representative was really the objective, right, of that vision. And obviously what we've implemented here at LGCY to help streamline that process, obviously. But everything that's happening in the background, we don't want the rep to know. So yeah. And so that's why it's important to know, okay, this triggers that triggers the other on our end. But then from the rep experience, being able to say, okay, what do they need to see? How can we facilitate those trainings? Because 95% of the time we would create content, we would create literature, would have somebody go out there, knock with these guys and get them all pumped and get them all ready. And we don't know anything that's actually being, retained. We don't know the retention of that rep. We don't know what's being consumed. And so like, it's just such a huge disconnect. Right. And so being able to somewhat conceptualize that, and then putting into just paper was super helpful for me. I have
to say, there's a lot of story. There's a lot of, I don't know, what's the right word? Metaphors, right? So there's like a lot of metaphors around theater and around making a movie. If you think about a whiteboarding, right? Whiteboarding every stage of a presentation or a film for a rep. And then the idea that what the rep sees, in terms of the film or the theater, it's way more dialed in than all the complexity, behind the curtain, right? All of the scaffolding and all of the stagehands and all the people running around, moving props around, and things like that. We don't want the rep to see those things, but they do need to be organized so that they're in the right. Like, I always think about sequencing. So if you were in the backstage, having the right, if you were doing a play, for example, and you have all these props, you got to have the props in the right order. Otherwise you wouldn't be able to get one out in time, And so I think about that in terms of whiteboarding and can you get the right sequencing in place? And that's what helps so much with like the lucid chart, the whiteboard. So keep going. I'm sorry. I just wanted to.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. Like it's the whole objective is to make it as simple as possible. But sometimes we forget from an operation standpoint how complex some of our processes are and how we think like, oh, these guys are going to why are they doing it this way? I don't understand. Why are they not doing it this way? And it's a constant like, oh my gosh, the rep did this way and it should have been done this way. And it's ongoing, and sure, we try to nip it in the bud by trying to communicate that and over communicate it through, Zoom calls and whatnot. But ultimately it comes down to being able to create a process with growth in mind, obviously, because there's always a limit to how many questions you can answer over the phone, right? There's always a limit to how many Zoom calls you can create. So what we wanted to do, I thought, it's the whole objective for me was like, how can I multiply myself in a way where I can hold the rep as if I was there with my hand and just hold their hand every step of the way, just like a customer, right? Doing sales 5+ years. I was like, man, I realized that my conversion to installation, for instance, was so much better when I was constantly communicating with my customer, when I would go there and give them cookies, when I would go there and explain something new to them, right? Especially in the solar industry, there's so much complexity that we just want to create this ease of mind, not only from the onboarding perspective for a rep, but all the way to their first sale and hopefully all the way to their installation.
When you say holding their hand, it's so true. I mean, in the online space, in online course industry where you're purchasing courses, it's really gone from this, hey, we have a course and we have a lot of content, we threw it all to you and you can't say it wasn't valuable, to, oh, we should really try to get some level of transformation for our customer, because otherwise they're not going to come back and they're not going to talk about the experience, right? So
yeah, and those bother me so much. It's like, here's the hook, here's like this thing that we think you should be doing, right? And in sales, you see it all the time. It's like, hey, come do this thing, come work for us, come knock doors, come do this, that, the other. And it's like, but how? But like, how?
Yeah. Like it's very front loaded. It's a front loaded experience, but then there isn't that holding the hand through the process. Simplicity for the rep can be complex. It takes a lot of work. One thing I love is it's kind of a loaded question, but when you first started that whiteboard, was it at all as high fidelity it is now? Like, did it start simple and then get more high fidelity?
It was literally like, okay, I'm in a box. Okay. Then like sales support or account management or, what kind of touch points. Then I go and I say, okay, I'm the rep. What do I want? Right. And I thought back, obviously.
What do I want? Yes. What do you want as a rep? What's in it for me? Yes.
Exactly. What's in it for me? What's incentives? And in the sales world, it's all about incentives. It's all about what is it for me? Right. And so being able to put myself in that perspective continuously, right, allowed me to kind of get more complex. Be like, oh man, how cool would it be? And then my creative juices started flowing. And
the juices come as a result of the starting of the work, right? Because I see a lot, they try to go from zero to everything versus no, if you just start laying out some of the building blocks, it begets more thought. It begets more, more nuance in terms of the journey, right?
That's right. And then you build it and you're like, holy, what?
Yeah.
What is this? Right.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, you get it all in place. See, because the complexity. So a lot of companies, as they scale, of course, you're going to try to simplify departments. So they go the direction of simplifying departments. So they make HR do the onboarding and they optimize for that. And then they have, trainers do the training and they optimize for that. And each one of the departments is optimizing separately, but it's actually making a more complex process for the rep.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
So it's a reverse scale. It's like, it's not actually helping you scale the number of reps that you can recruit, train, and onboard and retain. It's making it so that your departments are more optimized. Okay.
Yeah, definitely. Internally, for sure.
Yeah. You know what I'm talking about? Like when we were talking about different integrations and things like that. Well, there's a thick process in terms of who gets what and when it gets done and everything, versus putting the rep first, right? And what's in it for me, and then designing around that constraint. I love that. So I asked you a question. What do you wish you had known when you first started out your director of sales performance role?
Yeah. One, kind of going back to that department piece, right? It was like, I have to be the guy. I'm the center mid. If anybody like plays sports, the center mid for the soccer is the guy who like slows everyone down and, hey, communicates this to this person, that person, in order to try to score the goal. Right. I didn't realize how much of that I would be in this role. It's like, oh man, I got to go talk to HR, like their onboarding process. Like, is it going to be completely different than what I'm thinking for my training? Is that aligned? And then after that, it's like, okay, go and talk to my national trainer, right? The national trainer has to be in line because our communication has to be done. And then all of a sudden I'm talking to data and I'm talking to like the KPI team, and I'm looking at the engineering, right, team that builds our applications. And I'm saying, okay, how do we make sure we align and communicate the things that you think are important, but really what the rep thinks is important too, right? And how do we align those two things? And so there's a level of like organization as this position has kind of molded, that I've had to, I wish I knew, right?
Yeah.
Right from the get-go, because I would have saved a lot of time. And then another thing was the level of creativity that you require, right? It's not just, okay, all math, all like, okay, 1 + 2 + 3 equals a perfect rep, right? It's like, okay, 1 plus like 7.5 from this department and 0.2 of this department will end up being what we want.
Yeah.
And it's being able to determine what are those things and being creative enough to be able to put those pieces together that I wish I knew too. But it's been super enjoyable going through the process and
the creativity of okay, what are the constraints I have and how can I work around those? What needs to come first? I like your playing field analogy, because you're in a position on the field where you can see a lot going on. That's your job, is to have the visual, have the person that holds the context and you're an advocate for the rep, but you're holding the context of all of it in your head, right?
Yeah,
because they're optimized for their role and they're working to do their thing, but you're like the advocate that comes around like, actually, this puzzle piece that you're working on, great puzzle piece, but it's got to fit in here in this specific way.
Exactly. Yeah. And knowing, and going back to that chart, it's like knowing that process, really getting down to the nitty-gritty, help facilitate a plan of like, oh, when I have context to go and talk to somebody in a different department, I can show them something too. It's like, hey, look, this is the vision, right? So can we align together? Like, how can we get things together so that we're both working very proactively? And
Quick question about that. That's always in a way, you're like a product manager, right? So in
Yeah.
software, it's very much product management, except the product is the perfectly onboarded rep, right? And like that's the product. And so how do you what are some things that you could tell people listening around how to work with other departments where they also have their what's in it for me too? Okay. A trainer or somebody actually putting content together, like an instructional designer, is going to have their own preconceived notions around what content should look like. Okay.
Sure.
And I'm not, to be honest, this came up this week. We are a platform that's helping a lot of direct sales companies recruit, train, onboard reps. And we happen to be a great micro-learning training platform. But oftentimes companies in your space will hire instructional designers that used to work in an employee-based environment. And they approach training in a different way than maybe the training that you create for a rep who's independent, can nope out at any time, doesn't have to work here if he doesn't want to. It's a little different. All right.
Sure.
So how do you, what are some ways that you help them understand how this might be different or just maybe not conventional the way they're used to seeing it?
Yeah. And a lot of departments, right, they think that way. They think, oh, like, why are they not doing this or the other? It's like, one, you guys are literally chopped out from different, like, you guys are completely different. Like, they're like their own little business and you are a W-2 employee, which is great. There's nothing wrong with that, but it's just the way you think is completely different. Right. And so being able to, honestly, it's helpful that I have been in the field and I've sold, right? Because I'm an advocate because I was there. I sold for 5 years. I managed for 3 of those 5. And, being able to see from that perspective was really helpful. And so really it's sales. Like, I go to these departments and I'm selling them. And it's these soft skills that I've picked up throughout the years and being able to say, okay, here's my proposal, right? This is what I think. And this is what's going to benefit. This is how it's going to benefit you.
Yes.
Like, this is how easy your job is going to become because of this. Right. And so tactfully in a sales way, give or take, right? Depending on who you're talking to, realizing what the value that you're going to be bringing to them will be, right? With your vision, with your process, and then selling them on it and getting them excited about it. Because sometimes you have somebody come, who's been in the industry for a very long time. They've been in this very small niche of understanding, maybe the HR process or the onboarding process, and they do not want to, right? But then what happens is they see a bunch of problems and then they get really mad. And then you're like, great, this is an opportunity for me to be able to push them my product or my service or whatever, right? Going back to like a product manager and going and being like, hey, look, this is going to help you here, 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 and here. Like, you in? Right? And then they're going to be like, yeah, sure. Why not?
Yeah. And it starts with actually letting them voice their opinions, right? Like, and then aligning. It's just good sales, right? You ask, you diagnose, you ask questions. Hey, what do you not like about this? And then align that back with, well, actually, if we do this, otherwise, if you just start out with what I'm saying, if you just tell them without like listening and aligning, anchoring it back to what they care about.
Yeah. One of the biggest things that I've seen, going back to wishing, I knew a little bit more, or what I wish I knew was, I wish I knew how impactful that was. Going into every department I went, and just because of the way I did things, but I didn't realize what of an impact it would make. It was going into each department, everybody, like, even if I had nothing to do with them, be like, hey, like, how's it going? Yada, yada. What's your problem? Like, what's like your biggest problem? What are your top 3 problems?
Yes.
And
this is exactly what your role and these roles are. Like, different companies, right? Head of HR or head of learning, even if you're just a trainer, head of training. Okay. You can choose to spend your career just reacting to people telling you to build this training and that training and everything like that. Or you can be super valuable by being the person that you could sit in a room with the CEO and tell them exactly what the problems of every department are and how your group is going to connect and help solve some of those problems through training or through onboarding. Okay.
Yeah.
He who owns the problem the best, like just like he who's closest to the customer wins, it's like he who's closest to the departments wins. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That's the way I think about it. And that's what makes you a leader. If you can be like, I understand the problems. I understand what like truth looks like, what done looks like. And I'm going to help them. I'm going to be an advocate for them.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And obviously it's for the sake of the growth of the company, right? Always.
Yeah. Question for you. What's something you've changed? Either what's something you've added or removed from your onboarding training experience that was either had a terrific or terrible result?
Yeah. So our onboarding process at first, I mean, it hadn't changed for a very long time. Right.
Yeah.
So there has been some things that we've implemented that have been gone a long way. Other like, training videos and content like that. Right. One thing that we took away that I didn't realize, and sometimes it goes the other way. It's like you think you're being proactive, but
Mm-hmm.
you're actually not being proactive because you didn't listen. And it was like, or maybe you didn't ask the right question,
Mm-hmm.
right, to maybe a manager or whatever. And we took away videos for these managers because we thought, oh, these guys aren't even watching these things. Right.
Mm-hmm.
We just took them away. We looked at the stats and the way they were utilizing was different. Right. They were getting these videos. They were maybe going into ConveYour or wherever,
Mm-hmm.
grabbing the link and then sending it to all the reps because it was easy for them.
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't know that behavior. Right. And so through failure, essentially, we understood, okay, crap, like we need a way to be able to share videos or make it easier, or maybe eliminate some of these people who we think that don't watch it, and then add the managers to it so that they can have flexibility there. So that's one thing that was like, I felt like kind of, oh crap, like I should have, I should have been more proactive about it.
Yeah.
And because, we got blew up, hey, where do these videos go? And this new rep wants his videos. I've been watching it so times. And it's like, oh man, like we should have been a little bit more proactive about that. But
That's
that
cool.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. Yeah. You mentioned, there's listening to your people and listening to your managers, because sometimes there's things you don't know, you don't realize they are using, or they need, but you didn't get it out there, or, you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So if you could share one concept, tip, idea to sales directors, CROs, rep trainers, what would that be? What's a concept that's helped you a lot?
Yeah. So here at Legacy, like it's been really helpful to be able to see. So I started right when the company started, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was able to see it from inception pretty much, right? We were like in a 2 room place. I was recruited by this random old guy, like who was just like part-time. And they had this vision. And so I've seen it from, the very beginning all the way. Now we're at 32 states. Like we're huge, we're huge. And so it's like the number one piece of advice that I'll give you, or really anybody would be, listen to the rep. Like they'll tell you what they need. And sometimes the representative will be the one who, tells you the best idea. Like, I remember back in 2000, I think it was 2016, we were thinking through some Canvas and we're like, let's open it up. Canvas is our application here at Legacy that allows us to knock and prospect. But we're like getting feedback and we're like, let's start implementing a lot of these things. And the moment Canvas started doing that, when they first started, it was a game changer, right? It was a game changer because they were listening to what the managers, what the reps were saying and what they wanted, right? And the very beginning, that's okay. That's like what you're supposed to do. And that's okay. Right. And then once you mature, right, 2017, 2019, we started maturing a little bit more. We started getting more resources. We blew up. And so it's like, okay, now what resources can we facilitate to these individuals to help accelerate this? Right. And now we're at a stage where it's like, whoa, we're huge, like we should definitely be investing a little more time and resources, some value differentiators to these experiences to help facilitate even more scale, right? So listen to the rep at the stage in the company that you're in, right? Because everybody's stage is different. Take that input And then as you start learning and writing these things down, you're going to start being able to predict what the future is going to hold. And in an industry like in solar, like things change every day, right? But typically the sales experience doesn't.
Okay.
Right. So that's the one thing.
Yeah.
Like the way you sell, like that, I mean, that's almost universal,
Mhm.
right? I mean, sure, like the content, the process is universal, but like the content and what you're saying changes constantly. So try to hold on to what you can control, right? That's what I've always done. Control what you can control, and then adapt as you grow, and become better at it. And so just be patient with your process, be patient with your time frame in the company, right? And then as you grow and scale, I say, you know, start thinking more, oh, how do I become more proactive, rather than reactive?
I hear that it's so early on. Listening to the rep is a reactive process because you really don't have a lot to go off of. Like, you know, what are you going to bank it off of? You don't have a ton of, you know, if you have 10 reps, it's just like when you're starting a software product or something, you only have 10 customers. The best thing to do is just take that qualitative data that you're getting from them and say, okay, we'll implement that. We got it on the roadmap. We're going to make that happen. And then over
so many
time,
times,
go ahead.
So many times, Steven, sorry to interrupt, but it's just so many times we're trying to solve for a problem and we're not asking the problem. Like, it's like, hey, let's fix onboarding, right? And it's like, this is what I think it should look like. This is what I think it should look like. It's like, one, you have never gone through that process. Like you've gone through like a completely different process.
Yeah.
So like, okay, you're creating something you have no idea about.
Right.
And you have like 500 people or 100 people that have already gone through this process. What's keeping you from calling them and saying, hey, can you hop on a call 30 minutes? What would this
That's
look
right.
like? You tell me, you know?
Yeah. It's so funny. One little story I love telling about is like back in World War II, the British planes they'd go fly over into Germany and they'd come back with all these holes all over the plane. Right. And they're like, let's patch the holes. So let's patch all the holes, you know, and figure out the patch pattern, you know, the patch pattern that's optimal. And then one guy goes, what about the planes that don't come back? Where are they getting shot? Maybe we should patch everywhere where there aren't bullet holes. Okay.
Yeah.
And so it's an example of talking to reps. Like maybe you should talk to the reps that didn't stay. Maybe you should, you know, talk to the reps you don't talk to, because there's so much availability bias in how we design things. Whatever is available, either our own experiences, we use that to make choices. So whether that be other departments are pushing on us, what their experience was onboarding, like you mentioned, right? Or like it's not actually the experience that the person consuming your product had, right? Yeah, I love that. Just listen to the rep. And early on, it's very reactive, but then over time, you start to hear signals that steer a more common proactive response to many disparate signals into, you know, more proactive single. Okay, we're going to fix 9 of these things with this one solution, you know?
Yeah. And that is my favorite. It's like all about efficiency.
Yeah.
Right. It's like we're not running around with our heads cut off. It's all about efficiency. Let's gather information, make an educated decision. Let's verify that information, right? It's an experiment. This is all an experiment, right? Let's verify it. And then, whoa, look at the impact, right?
Exactly. Yeah. What's something you're inspired by right now? I see you told me about this book, Awareness. And I'd love to learn more about that. I've never heard of that book. What is Awareness?
Yeah. So I actually read it when I have time. It's actually right here, but,
okay.
It's so I got it from a friend and it kind of helped me. I mean, at a personal level, right?
Yeah.
And it inspires me because it helped me better understand me, right?
Yeah.
Going back to like helping understand like my process, but through the rep, right? It's like, what about me? What makes me tick, right? Like, who am I, right? And it's helped me kind of be more introspective, in a way where I can kind of better understand who I am, because sometimes in the hustle and bustle, you know, we get so consumed in work or in whatever the heck we're doing, and we kind of forget, you know, like, why am I doing this?
Yeah.
You know,
or why am I making the decisions the way I make them?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, is this good for me? Does this make me happy? right? Does this make me happy? And typically, you know, and I've learned a lot from that and inspired me, because it's like, typically you can help anybody or, you know, help anybody go through a journey or whatever it may be that you want, as long as it's aligned with their happiness, right? It's like, if they're happy and you help them be happy, like, you're doing the right thing, you're going the right way. So that's what's inspired me. That book.
What else? Any other books that you love? Any recent books?
So with the business world, like, right, there's a personal world, and they all, you know, we try to keep those harmonious as we can. But when it comes to like the business side and the Atomic Habits book by James Clear, like, that's a really good book, because I mean, and it kind of goes with what, you know, ConveYour does. It's all about like these small little nudges, these small little things that we're trying to do. And in sales, it's all about that first door, or it's all about being able to wake up in the morning, or whatever the heck it is that these guys are going out there and doing. It's like, whoa, let's break this down, right? We think it's this huge problem. Then let's break it down into this little thing, and then say, what happens if we optimize for this? What happens?
It's the layering, right? It's the sequencing and the layering. I think in the book, it's like, they talk about how, you know, you want to learn, you want to get to be, you know, really consistent with exercise, wake up and put your gym shorts on, you know? You just like little things like that. And it's almost like developing the habits more important than the outcome. Right. And so we're designing and sequencing towards the development of an outcome. We can't control whether or not they develop the habit. We can help control whether or not they're cued, or the habit, the practice, developing the habits becomes top of mind, right? That's the most
you're
important.
essentially giving them an opportunity.
Right.
That's everything. Like, anytime somebody's given an opportunity, like if somebody came and knocked on the door today and I had an exercise in the day and they said, hey, do you want to go work out? And it gives me an opportunity to say yes or no. You know? And it's like, if I say no, okay, well, maybe in a couple hours, right? What happens if that happens? Chances are I probably get a yes, right? So it's all about the optimization. And anyways.
Well, I got Jason has a few questions for you. Jason, you want to go?
Yeah, the first one was, what kind of cookies? You said you take cookies to people's house. What kind of cookies did you take?
Oh, that's a good question. I like that.
So when I was out there in Bakersfield, and I was a district manager in Bakersfield and Fresno, I would sell, and one of the best practices I had to be able to get the customer to installation was bringing them cookies. It was chocolate chip cookies. So awesome. My wife and I, you know, I'd go close a count or 2 or 3 or whatever. And then I'd be like, hey, babe, I'd text her like, I closed so-and-so, this is her name, whatever. And she'd write a little note. And then I would go pick them up and then drive them the next day, essentially, and say, hey, thanks for going solar with me.
Oh, that's so cool.
Here's some cookies. Cool. Like, who's going to say no to somebody to give them cookies?
Yeah, cookies, homemade cookies from my wife. Like, you got to say, like, hey, my wife made these cookies. Like, how awesome is that in terms of just making a connection with somebody and not feeling like the context changes, right?
Yeah,
that's great.
Definitely.
Okay, so and that a lot of good takeaway right there. So I think that people can learn from that, absolutely. But more on a note of development and training and whatnot. I typed them out. So for the person who's listening to this, who's in a director role, but maybe they weren't a rep, or maybe they were a rep for a different company, they do something slightly different, or maybe it's been years since they've been in the field. What kind of questions, because you talked about focusing on the rep's need, what kind of questions can somebody in that director role ask to find out what the director, or I'm sorry, what the rep needs, like at this moment?
Like a targeted way of doing it? I like that.
Yeah. Typically, I mean, it goes back to like what I would ask even a customer, right? If there's an objection or there's an insecurity before even moving, right? Because what I love about sales is the objective of getting somebody from one point to another, and that's the sale, right? And so, but how you do that, you can be tactful about it. You can be question based about it. You can be empathetic about it. You can be very what is it, process based about it, like A plus B plus C equals sale, right? So there's different ways. I say find your strength, right? For anybody out there, find your strength of how do you help somebody get to from A to B, right? If it's being empathetic or loving or one of those attributes that is within their strength. Like for me, it's questions. Like I love to ask questions, and that's how I get somebody to do something. Typically, it's like I ask them, what's motivating them to do X, Y, Z, and I just listen, right? And I get them to a point where they can make a decision. So the advice is know yourself, right? Going back to self-awareness, like know what kind of person you are and how you help people get to one place to another, and then be deliberate about it, right? Go out there and do the thing that you think is best for, the rep or for, the organization. Go ask questions or, go listen, right? And that's how you're going to get somewhere. A lot of people think there's this overarching, like, oh my gosh, this is so much responsibility, but it's like, no, just go be curious, go listen, intake as much information as possible, and then use your strengths to get somewhere.
Yeah. Can I button up? So you said something that has stuck out, the theme, and that is, go out and do the human thing of getting qualitative results. Go out in there and talk to individual people, start building up an instinct around what they need, and then verify with data, verify with a macro question,
right? That's
I have a hunch based off of 5 conversations that this is the problem. Now I'm going to go verify. Right. So I took anecdotal information and then I can go, figure out if that's actually the right direction. And then I can show people that this is the right direction based off of a hunch. Yeah.
Yeah. And the hunch is important.
Yeah.
But the hunch is so important when you have numbers behind it. And so you can't really make a good decision if you don't have both. Right.
Yeah.
Like there has to be some emotion. There has to be some data. Right. And typically they'll give you an arrow to know where to go next.
But there are people that are super data driven and they only do it data driven.
And that could be a detriment.
But it's a detriment, right? Because it's like setting up a survey question before you've actually had are you asking the right questions?
Exactly.
That's, right. So you could optimize to get what we call local maximum, where you go out and survey 500 reps on a topic that they're like, okay, fine, I'll answer this question, but it's really doesn't really matter to me. Right. Yeah. Versus going out and having 10 conversations first and then turning that into, let me verify this. This is good.
Yep.
Yeah,
that's right.
That's cool. What else, Jason?
Jason, does that answer your question?
Yeah, very much so. And so it's great because the 2 follow-up questions, you actually touched on them. And I think you answered both the questions. I'm going to ask them anyway, just for you to elaborate or go expand at all. But the follow-up question, which again, you answered, was what can a sales rep who might stumble upon this? Because I know the podcast is kind of directed toward hopefully, directors of sales and whatnot. But for the rep who stumbles upon it, what can they do now to develop skills for them to be able to get to a place where they're able to step into a role like yours? What can they do to learn? I think you answered that with the awareness one. And then following up with that is, what is someone in your role looking for in a rep to be able to promote them? So it's kind of like, what are you looking for? Because they might work on something that you're not actually looking for. So meshing this.
So as a rep, you have to be very curious and you have to be patient, right? Because the more patient, the more curious you are, the more likely you are to essentially grow, right? And so that's from the rep's perspective. So if there's a rep out there that stumbled on this, like, just be patient with your processes, be patient with your company because they're learning, right? But also you make a big impact if you communicate what you think are the solutions, not the problems, but rather the solutions to those problems. That's what's going to blow you up. Like, whoa, I see this problem, this problem, this problem. I know Johnny, who also has a problem that I work closely with. I think I have a solution for this. Whoa, like you just became the guy telling us what to do, right? That's very, very, very powerful. And then I think that also answers the other side of it. It's like, oh, what are we looking for? Somebody who's constantly coming up with solutions, right? Because we're in the sales organization, the sales world. like we said, things change all the time, right? People who are constantly listening, people who are patient, people who are creating solutions, those are the people who are going to lead companies. Those are the leaders of the organizations that, you see today. They came up with a question. Every CEO that saw a problem and solved it, right? So
Yeah.
what else?
Yeah, when reps or mid-level management complain, I think they think that leadership has the solution and they just haven't implemented. It's actually not the case sometimes.
Yeah.
Almost never.
Case.
It's okay, middle management, help us solve the problem, because it's actually not solved for. It's not like we're trying to be Machiavellian and holding back some amazing solution that we don't want to give you.
People forget that we're all like kind of pretending to be out here in this world.
Yeah, exactly.
Kind of like, coexisting. And it's like, actually, like, we can, you're like me,
Yeah, exactly. So it's a growth mindset, where they're like, okay, I can help the company have a better DNA. I can be part of that. Yep. It's the approach you take, right? If you start with this sucks for me and it's about me and everything, then you immediately, okay, it's hard to receive. But if it's like, hey, I could help all managers here's the solution. It could help the company. And I, as a byproduct, it helps me, in my business. But those are the ones that are received by upper level, right?
That's right.
And you see it, like we actually see inputs coming from companies, and they say, hey, we talked to some of our reps and they had this really great idea about this, and they explained why it's important to them, and we want to implement that. Versus, we had 4 or 5 reps complaining about this, and it's just totally different.
And also it's so draining, right? Like that's the draining side of all of this. Like, oh man, if you change that culture, if you change that attitude into a solving culture, problem solving culture, which I feel like legacy is done. Like that's why they are where they are. It changes the dynamic of an organization drastically. It just does.
Yeah. It's not a us versus them kind of thing. That's great, man. George, we got to do this again. You're awesome, man. I'm so glad to have you on. It's really great to have. You're like the prototype. You're like the universal soldier of like the clients we want to have. Just the way you think about it. Think about your role and the companies that you work with. But thanks for coming on. Look forward to the next time we get to chat, man. Thank you so much.
Hey, thank you guys. I appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for checking out the Reps Journey episode 6 today. If you want to find a job in sales as a sales rep, in the description is a link to LGCY Power's job listing. So if you're looking for a sales rep position, check it out. They also have a couple of other jobs, and they're in Virginia, Texas, Utah, California. They're all over the United States. So check that out. It'd be a great resource for you. And then if you are looking for a solution that meets what a lot of the things that George talked about today, onboarding and speeding up that process, check out ConveYour. That's who I'm with. I'm Jason. I'm the director of customer success over there, and Steven is the CEO, and we have great solutions for you. So check us out at ConveYour.com, and you can book a demo. That link will also be in the description of this video, and that's it. Thanks a lot. We'll see you next time.